Here's your wrestling news for April 10th, 2023, and we're kicking off with Vince McMahon, and after this week's Raw was deemed the worst post-WrestleMania Raw ever, the chairman wasn't at SmackDown, but just where in the world was he? Sean Ross Sapp reveals that instead of being in Portland, McMahon was on the East Coast, though that didn't stop him from having influence on the show. McMahon made minor changes to the show, but no major changes to SmackDown, which the roster were very happy about, so perhaps WWE will learn their lesson and keep Vince away from TV. It was in January of this year that Vince McMahon strong-armed his way back into WWE and used his power as the company's majority vote holder to force his way back. McMahon had threatened to vote against any possible offers for a sale and vote against any negotiations over media rights unless he was brought back, and this power play clearly paid off for him. Last week, it was announced that WWE is to be acquired by Endeavor and will be placed in a new company with UFC, which will greatly affect McMahon's influence from a corporate side. As WrestleNomics pointed out, this new company, tentatively titled TKO, will mean that McMahon will no longer have majority voting control over WWE or other entities within the new company. While McMahon will have the largest voting control at 18.4%, it'll be easier for the chairman's decisions to be voted down in the new company. In addition to Vince, Stephanie McMahon will hold 1.2% of the shares, with Linda McMahon owning 0.4%, and 28.9% of the shares in voting power will be owned by other WWE shareholders. The other 51% of the shares in voting power will be owned by the other shareholders of Endeavor, so while McMahon has called this the best deal of his life, he may have to get used to not getting his way. But what do you think to this? Will McMahon come to regret this deal, or does he have another trick up his sleeve that we haven't seen yet? Share your views in the comments. Over to Raw now, and after last week's critically panned show, WWE are looking to make things right this week and have a lot of plans in mind. This week's Raw will be the latest event on the road to WWE Backlash in Puerto Rico, and if you don't want to get spoiled, we recommend skipping the next minute and a half of the video. According to sources within WWE, one plan for tonight's show is for the Bobby Lashley vs. Bronson Reed feud to begin in full after being teased on last week's show. During that show, Lashley challenged Reed to a match, but the Australian superstar refused, but the plan is for the former North American champion to blindside Lashley during Raw. This week's show will also see WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Becky Lynch and Lita defend against Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan, and fans can expect the title to change hands. Sources have heavily suggested that tonight's show will see Trish Stratus turn heel and cost the champions, giving the win and the titles to Morgan and Rodriguez. The belief in WWE is that both challengers need something to keep them relevant, and it has been previously reported that the plan is for Lynch and Stratus to face off at SummerSlam. Before SummerSlam, though, WWE will host their Backlash event next month and expect the main event to be announced tonight. After Brock Lesnar turned heel and laid waste to Cody Rhodes on last week's Raw, it has been announced that the American Nightmare will address his WWE future tonight. Sources have made it clear that Rhodes will challenge Lesnar to a match at Backlash, and while the offer may not be accepted right away, that match is on the card for Backlash. But what do you think of these plans? Are they better than what we saw on last week's Raw? Sound off in the comments. At WrestleMania 39, Shane McMahon's return to WWE went very wrong after the best in the world suffered a torn quadricep during his impromptu match with The Miz. As we reported during our WrestleMania 39 review, Snoop Dogg stepped in and replaced Shane during the match, and the WWE Hall of Famer had plenty of help. Fan footage of the entire segment reveals that a cameraman told Snoop Dogg to punch The Miz after it was clear Shane couldn't compete, and referee Jessica Carr was also able to talk Snoop through the match. Snoop and Miz were able to keep fans entertained while Shane was helped out of the ring into the back, and it has since been confirmed that McMahon has undergone surgery in Birmingham, Alabama. Snoop Dogg served as the host of WrestleMania 39 and made sure fans had a great time despite Shane's injury, and WWE has Snoop, The Miz, Carr, and this cameraman to thank for their quick thinking on the biggest show of them all. It has been 184 days since Bray Wyatt made his return to WWE, and despite a strong start, his return to the company has been pretty mixed at best. Sure, the White Rabbit videos had fans on the edge of their seats, and Wyatt's return at Extreme Rules was a runaway success, but the rest of his run has fell flat with countless fans. When fans were asked to grade Wyatt's run with WWE in the 6 months he's been back, many gave the former Universal Champion's run so far a straight F. Others weren't so harsh, with Bray's report getting a D or 2, and one fan said it was an A+ grade before the Royal Rumble, but things quickly went downhill for him after that show. Wyatt didn't appear at WrestleMania 39 due to an illness, and perhaps the most damning part of his return is that his presence was not missed at all across the 2 nights of the show. As we reported yesterday, Wyatt has also been dealing with issues regarding his mental health, though the exact details surrounding these problems remain unclear. Fans were infuriated when Wyatt was released in 2021 and were thrilled to see him back, but has his return fallen flat for you? Sound off in the comments. On the April 7th SmackDown, Triple H didn't just promise that the WWE Draft is returning, but vowed that it would be the biggest draft ever, with every superstar in the locker room available. Talent from Raw, SmackDown, and presumably NXT will soon find themselves on new brands, but Triple H has another idea to make this year's draft the biggest ever. As we've reported in the past, there have been plans for WWE to introduce a new World Championship, but this title will look very familiar. According to sources within WWE, the plan is for the game to reintroduce the classic World Heavyweight Championship, commonly known as the Big Gold Belt, upon the draft being completed later this year. The attitude within WWE is that with the draft, WWE wants to reassert that there is a brand split, and one way to do just that is by bringing in a second World Championship. As for this particular championship, WWE's reasoning is that the title design is one of the most beloved title designs in history, and reintroducing it would earn WWE a lot of popularity with the fans. One source in WWE noted that it just makes sense for Triple H to be the one to reintroduce the title, as he was the one who was presented with the same piece of gold in September 2002. As for how this new champion will be crowned, it has been speculated within WWE that May's King of the Ring tournament will see the King also become champion. And are you excited by this decision to bring back the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? More from WrestleMania, as Logan Paul competed in his 5th professional wrestling match at the event and was able to go toe-to-toe with former WWE and Universal Champion Seth Rollins. In his matches for WWE, Paul has won over even the most cynical of wrestling fans with his skills and has now impressed one very interesting name. When Dana White spoke with TMZ about the possibility of WWE-UFC crossover following the Endeavor deal, the UFC president spoke highly about the Maverick, saying, "I don't know jack about wrestling, but let's tell you what I do know. They hit a home run with that guy, an absolute home run. He's incredibly talented. He's an amazing athlete, and yes, I was blown away by watching him, so obviously, if you have a scenario where somebody is that good and could go over to the WWE, it's going to happen." White's comments sure are interesting, given that Paul recently stated that he has dreams of holding a WWE championship, a boxing championship, and a UFC championship all at the same time. As to whether that will happen, who's to say, but between White's praise and Triple H texting Paul, "That was awesome" after WrestleMania, the Maverick is certainly impressing the right people. Yesterday, we reported on Danis, who has shown interest in transitioning from being an MMA fighter to a professional wrestler. Danis has reportedly expressed interest in joining other MMA alum in WWE, but this week, the Bellator star took aim at the AEW World Champion. On Twitter, Danis threatened to rearrange the face of MJF, which prompted the champ to respond, simply asking Danis who he even is. Unsurprisingly, Danis didn't take too kindly to what MJF had to say, and in a follow-up tweet, suggested to Tony Khan that he should come to the next AEW show and destroy this failed Chippendale stripper. To bring his point home, Danis included a photo of MVP donned in fireman garb, and we'll have to see if the AEW president takes Danis up on this offer. For decades, Johnston was WWE's go-to guy for wrestling themes, and fans have him to thank for the music of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, The Ultimate Warrior, and many more stars. It was in 2017 that Johnston was let go by WWE, who have since had a mixture of different groups create themes, but Johnston's name still carries a lot of respect among wrestling music fans. Speaking on Conversations with Conrad, Johnston spoke about the modern-day wrestling music and made it clear that he's not a fan of what fans are hearing these days. "Music for me is all about making people feel something. That's its purpose. There's so much music out there that it's so much better produced than anything I can do, and it doesn't make you feel anything. It doesn't make you feel anything, it doesn't have anything to do with the character anymore, which I think is an incredible missed opportunity. Johnston has attempted to get back into the world of entrance themes, but has said that AEW ghosted him after he contacted the promotion about working together. An entrance theme is the first thing a fan will experience prior to a wrestler's match, so it's important that the tune sets the tone. And do you agree with Johnston? Sound off in the comments. While Ember Moon had an impressive run in NXT, that success didn't translate to WWE's main roster, and despite a return to the Gold brand, Moon was cut from her contract in 2021. Since then, Moon has reinvented herself in AEW and Ring of Honor as Athena, where she seems to be much happier, but she hasn't forgotten her tenure working for Vince McMahon. On the sessions, the reigning Ring of Honor Women's World's Champion recalled her early days in AEW and admitted that there was a time when she felt lost. Athena chalked up this anxiety to what she called WWE PTSD and feared that, like her WWE tenure, her tenure working for Tony Khan would be spent sat in catering. Of course, that didn't happen, as Athena has proven to be a force to be reckoned with in ROH, and while WWE has been re-signing names over the past year, don't expect the former Ember Moon to ink a new deal. And we're ending today with Vickie Guerrero, and it was last week that her daughter Sherilyn accused Vickie's husband of sexually assaulting her during a cruise in 2020. Sherilyn's sister Shawl and her cousin Chavo Guerrero have both said that Sherilyn's claims are accurate, and Sherilyn also said that when she confronted her mother, Vickie defended her husband. In a scathing post of her own, Vickie said that she no longer considers Sherilyn her daughter, and even claimed that Sherilyn should be grateful to Chris for buying her a car. Given this response that Sherilyn should have more gratitude to the man who allegedly assaulted her, there's been plenty of backlash against Vickie, who has deactivated both her Twitter and her Instagram accounts. Vickie has also been removed from the AEW roster page following the drama, despite the fact that her contract doesn't end until July, but it now looks like she is not going to be featured on TV anymore. Vickie has said that she will not re-sign with AEW later this year and is ready for the next chapter of her life outside wrestling, but it appears her career in the industry will be ending on this difficult note.